The cyber attack on the Electoral Commission's open register was outside of the control of the Electoral Commission, within reason, but the PSNI's leak was down to human error. First things first, are you investigating both these cases?
We are. We've been notified of them. They're on our books here.
We've heard the details of other breaches at the PSNI, the theft of documents and laptop from a car in Newton Abbey. Look, it appears that across the public sector, there is a problem with data security. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think it is. And I'm working closely with a number of public authorities. We've got a cross-Whitehall group, which we're trying to deploy to really get this to the top of the agenda and make sure the lessons of every matter that we look into and investigate are learned across the system so that we don't keep playing this whack-a-mole game and seeing the same things repeated time and time again. We see this, for example, with emails sent with addresses in the CC rather than the BCC field, thereby exposing everybody else's addresses in sometimes very sensitive matters. And there's just no excuse for that in 2023. They should be using mail merge. They should be training their staff. They should be investing in keeping our data safe.
And as you say, it's the public's personal data, and in places like Northern Ireland, and we read in the Times, people who are at risk from foreign governments, Hong Kong dissidents, Chinese dissidents, are very worried about their data, their personal data and personal information falling into the wrong hands. What else are public sector organisations getting wrong when it comes to data security then? You mentioned those sorts of basic mistakes. In the case of the PSNI earlier this week, it seems to be sort of a human error. Blunder is the sort of language they used internally. But what else are people getting wrong?
Well, I mean, the limits are only for your own imagination. I mean, you see things like misdirected mail. Gosh, I mean, there's innumerable ways with the number of channels that we have these days for communicating, the ease with which large volumes of data can pass from one place to another. There are just increasing kind of risk factors. And what my ask of these authorities is that they are constantly vigilant, that they don't treat data protection as a tick box, do it once and you're set exercise. These are ongoing obligations. I mean, when you look at another factor, for example, is the Excel spreadsheet. These are notorious, and I would really, if I was running an organization that held personal information in spreadsheets, I would be saying you never upload a spreadsheet to a publicly facing website, because data can be concealed in those tabs behind the one that's evident when you open it. They can be in pivot tables. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned. The security, the online security with the more sophisticated hacks, the WannaCry viruses, the attack on the Electoral Commission. These controllers have to be constantly vigilant about patching their systems, getting the updates from the National Cybersecurity Centre of alerts and different modalities of attack, and really investing, I think, to ensure, as I say, that the public can have confidence that their data is safely protected.
And what does it say that, organisations as important and in receipt of such vital information, such sensitive information as the Electoral Commission, could be vulnerable to? Are you alarmed that organisations like the Electoral Commission are vulnerable to attacks from hostile actors? Because it implies that even at the very top of the state, these steps might not be being taken.
I mean, yes, I am alarmed. And we do see these across organisations which, if you take data protection out of the equation and, if you took away the whole of the UK GDPR, you would still expect these agencies to protect the data which fuels their business, which is their license to operate. So these are not just lapses of legal obligation. These are deep cultural problems of how we prioritize and what we call important.
And are you also alarmed? You were talking about Excel spreadsheets there. Were you surprised to see that that's how the Police Service in Northern Ireland was keeping its database? Just one massive Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, I haven't really looked into that. We'll be going over that scenario pretty closely to see, what lessons can be learned. This is one of those situations where a chain of events has led to this really terrible outcome that has left, hundreds or thousands of people in Northern Ireland really worried about their security. I think the point that you make is a really interesting one and a valid one that we will need to look at. Why would you keep all of that in a single spreadsheet? Is that a safe way of maintaining data? And I think the assumption that you've made, we might well agree with, that it quite probably is not.
And what would you say to people involved in either case? Tens of millions of people are potentially impacted by the Electoral Commission hack, and indeed tens of thousands in the case of the Police Service in Northern Ireland. What's your message to people who would say, look, I think my personal data has been compromised. What do I do now?
It's really important, I think, not to panic. I know that sounds a bit patronising, but there are some sensible steps that people can take just to maintain a bit of vigilance that their identities are not being stolen, that the data is not being used. So to keep an eye on online activity, get your credit report. I don't think either of these particular hacks involve password security. So I wouldn't be saying go out and change all your passwords, but just keeping an eye on how your online presence is represented.